What is up, my friends, and welcome back to Hobble Create. My name is Hobble, and in today's episode I am going to show you how to passively generate slime, which is a very useful resource to have. So if you are new here, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and remember to leave a like. But slime is incredibly useful, mostly because it's the way that we can make super glue, and super glue, well, that's just the glue that holds all of our Create contraptions together, and it does eventually break, so having a large quantity of slime, very useful. We can also combine it with some blaze powder to make our magma cream, but that's a spoiler for next episode. So we're going to be starting off with a vertical gearbox. We're going to orient this in a way that's facing where we've got our rotational power. On here, we're going to place down a mechanical bearing. On top of here, you need to place down 10 radial chassis. And on the first one, we're going to place down a piece of dirt. We're going to leave a 2-block gap and another piece of dirt. And you guessed it, another 2-block gap and a final piece of dirt. Now with some super glue in our offhand, we're going to come to this bottom one here. Right above our dirt, we're going to build out 5. Now you can make this longer if you want, it depends how big you want your farm to be. And apparently I can't count because that's only 4. But on our second piece of dirt, we're going to do the same, another 5 blocks. And on our third piece of dirt, we're not going to be placing here. Instead, we're going to be placing right on the top of our radial chassis, coming out like so. It'll become clear a little bit later why this is quite important. Now with our dirt layer, we're going to come out 6 blocks. We're going to do the same over here, another 6 blocks. And you guessed it, another 6 blocks on either side. Now coming to the end of any of our pillars, we're going to add 1 block on either side, and then repeat that for the other pillars. Now let me know, what do you call a lying down pillar? Pillar is usually upright, so what should I be calling these things? Roads? No. But anyway, what we're going to do then is we are just going to join these together. And with something looking a little bit like this, we are just going to fill in all of the inside space. If we attach a mechanical plow to our end piece over here, then we throw in some temporary power. Doing this, we can see exactly where our mechanical harvesters will be able to reach. And then we can give it a test. Can we reach that block? We cannot. How about any of these blocks? We can reach this block apparently. That's going to be a weird one, but okay. How about down here? I don't think we're going to be able to reach this one. We cannot, but this is going to be a way that we're going to refine our shape a little bit, making sure we've got the absolute maximum amount of space available for our farm. So now that we know everywhere that we can have some farmland, I'm going to go ahead and replace the outer row of dirt with a piece of cobblestone. Now then, outside my cobblestone layer, I'm going to add one more layer, and this is going to be my decoration block. Now sadly, crops need to be watered, so in here we are going to need to fit in some water sources. The easiest way if you're going 5 blocks long is to come to your center block and just break out the diagonal block. We're going to place some stairs in here, this diagonal, and this diagonal. We can then go ahead and waterlog these. But then right in the center, on the blocks between our stairs, we're going to either place down some lanterns or some torches. But now that we've got the basic principle down, we need to do this one more time for this layer right here. But do not build it on the top one because we need to do something a little bit different for that one. Now for our final layer, we're going to copy this exact design down here. However, we do not need to worry about waterlogging and we do not need to worry about turning it into farmland. We just need this shape. And now that we know everywhere that our harvesters can actually reach, we can start to place down some sand in order to make a cactus farm. So starting from the center, we cannot place a block here because any cactus will just pop straight off because of our chassis. So we're going to start off with something like this. So that means our next one goes here, and we're just going to bring this all the way out to the end. So making sure that you know which way you're going to be spinning, we're going to take super glue in our offhand. On the top, we need to place down 5 mechanical saws. And then on the other 2 layers, we need to go in and we need to place down some mechanical harvesters. So there we are, giving it a little bit of power and hoeing our ground, we have got some nice farmland. So on our bottom layer, we're going to plant some wheat. On our second layer, we're going to place even more wheat. And then on top of all of our sand, we're going to place down our cactus. However, I've had to stop the machine again because I have forgotten one very important piece of a contraption. I know! I'm still forgetting things, but we are going to need to add a little bit of storage, so we can go ahead and throw that on the back up here. In fact, just in case it's going to mess up our cactus, we're just going to place it down on top. But not only that, we need a way to get the items off, so on the bottom linear chassis, we're going to place down a portable storage interface. But after all is said and done, you will have a 2-tier wheat farm and a cactus farm. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to go ahead and join these corners up, make it look a little bit pretty, like so. It's nothing much, but it's prettier. So coming to any side that you want to build the rest of your contraption off of, we're going to go this way. We're going to come to this center piece of glass and place down a temporary block. We're going to hold down crouch and we're going to right click on another portable storage interface. And what we should see is when it spins around, it should make a connection. Nothing's going to happen because it can't go anywhere, but then it'll keep going around. If you don't make the connection, you need to make sure that your spacing is correct. You do have this extra block in here. We do need a 2-block gap between our kissy kissers. But underneath our storage interface now, we're going to need to set up a belt to pull all of the items away. The size isn't too important right now as we can make it longer or shorter depending on our needs. But attached to our interface now, we need to place down a funnel. I'm going to go for brass because it's going to allow us to pull out stacks at a time. However, this one could actually be andesite. So the first item that we're going to be dealing with is the wheat. So designate which side of your build is going to be the front because we're going to be building out to the back. We're going to take a temporary block, an item vault, remove the temporary block. On here, we're going to add in a funnel. This one does need to be brass because we're going to filter this to wheat. And now we're going to be working with belts and their orientation. We're going to first add some power to our main belt. To come into the center where we're powering our contraption, we're going to add in some shafts. Then we're going to add in a speed controller. This is going to allow us to actually control the speed of our belts and any of the processing that we do afterwards. But from here, we are going to need a cogwheel and 2 vertical gearboxes. Make sure we're spinning in the correct direction and we can afford to give this a little bit of speed. Now I did go ahead and add a barrel to the end of our belt here just so the items just don't fall onto the ground. This is just temporary while we work on our wheat system. Then underneath our item vault for our wheat, we are going to place in a new belt. And my brain's telling me it needs to be about 7 blocks long. We're going to extend it as we need it. But on the back of our item vault, we're going to add in an andesite funnel because this one does not need to be quick. We are relying on crop speed after all. And then 2 blocks away, we're going to place down a millstone with an andesite funnel going in and out. This is going to make our wheat flour. That wheat flour is then going to go into another vault. So again, we're going to add 2 blocks here, add in a vault, andesite funnel going in. And then to save on a little bit of space back here, we're going to come to the side of our item vault, add in a depot and another andesite funnel. This could be brass if you want to speed things up ever so slightly, but honestly, the cost, it may as well just be andesite. Now above our andesite funnel, we are going to add in a temporary block and we are going to surround that with some shaft. And on top of that temporary block, we are going to add in an encased fan. And we can replace that temporary block with a water source. Now coming around to the back where we've got our storage interface, we're going to add a gearbox into the shaft that's powering our belt, a second gearbox, and that should actually start powering our belt over here. In order to power our millstone, we're just going to add a shaft into the belt, a vertical gearbox and a small cogwheel. And then on the end of our belt, we are going to add in a gearbox, a couple of shafts, and then we just need to add some rotational power into our fan. Like so. And that's going to start washing our wheat flour into dough. Yummy. So underneath our depot that's got our wheat bread on, we need to add in another belt. This one is going to come out, I think, 4 blocks. On here, we need to add in a brass funnel and we are going to filter that to our wheat dough. Now, running parallel to this belt, we are going to add in a second one. The reason for that, right next to our funnel, we need to add in 2 brass tunnels. This is going to allow us to split our dough into 2 production lines. On our right hand line, we are just going to have this go directly into an item vault. This is going to be our finished product, the one that we're going to keep in order for crafting. This second one, however, we're going to extend this belt out a little bit more. That way we can place in an item vault and we can have our brass funnel going into there. At the end of this belt, we're going to place down a depot, another brass funnel, but on top of this funnel, we are going to add in a campfire. Like so. And you guessed, on top of this campfire, another encased fan. This is going to be really fun to wire up all of the power, I think. Now to the right of this depot, we are going to add in another belt. However, this is going to be a diagonal belt. And that's going to go up like so. And again, we do need to use brass for this one. But we need to bring this diagonal belt up 3 so it's in line with our input belt. At the end of the belt, we're going to place down a composter. On top of the composter, we need a vanilla hopper, and we also need one below. On this hopper, at the end of our belt, we need to place down another funnel. And while we've got the hoppers in our hand, we may as well bring a hopper line coming back to here, our original belt. On this one, we are going to filter for seeds, because obviously our farm is producing seeds, and we don't really have a use for them, so we can just send those into our composter to boost our compostable chances. The way we've got our first encased fan, we have got a gearbox down here. We're going to place down another vertical gearbox, and then a shaft. That's going to give us rotation for our belts. However, I think I might have just made a mistake over here. I did. We get wheat seeds as a byproduct of grinding down. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I'm going to come back to that problem in just a moment. First, I want to actually swap this over to a brass funnel. And I'm going to set this filter so it only pulls out the wheat flour. But we're going to deal with that a little bit later. First, we're going to set the filter down here to be bread. And then on this diagonal belt, we're going to add in 2 gearboxes. Then connecting to this belt above, we're going to add in 2 more vertical gearboxes. So the last thing to power is this encased fan. So we're going to add in 2 vertical gearboxes, add in a shaft, and then an additional 2 gearboxes. That's going to give us the correct blow for our dough. So next up, I would like to process this bone meal and turn it into white dye. So we're going to be building again towards the back. We've got the perfect gearbox right here, so we're going to add 2 shafts to it. We're going to come across to the side one. This is where we're going to make our belt. However, we're not going to be turning our hopper around just yet in order to face the belt. That's because that'll then just start throwing all of that bone meal onto the floor. And that's just more cleanup for us, and we're not a fan of cleaning up. So let's go ahead and make this belt a little bit longer. Add in a shaft so we keep our rotational power. Then on top of the belt above that shaft, we're going to add in a millstone with 2 funnels. And again, we're just going to power this with a vertical gearbox and a cogwheel. Now, leaving a 1 block gap from our gearbox, we're going to place down an item vault. This is where all of our white dye is going to end up. However, we get a byproduct of light grey dye, and we're just going to put that into a dump vault. We don't really care about light grey dye. Might be useful to have in the future for any other builds, but for now, we're just going to dump it into the end of the belt. And now we can go ahead and turn our hopper around, throw in the bone meal that we had. That's going to go in. And of course, we need to set the filter to be white dye. Now, the final piece of our puzzle is going to be dealing with the cactus and turning that into green dye. So we know that we want our green dye to end up right next to our white dye. So making sure that this vault is going to be placed in a different orientation, we're going to add in another item vault. That didn't work. We're going to go this way because they do connect, however you can turn things around. Our green dye needs to end up here. So that means underneath here, we are going to need a new belt. Now, making sure not to connect into this gearbox here because that would give us the wrong rotation. Instead, we're going to connect to the one at the back here with a shaft. Yay! We are winning. Make sure you add a funnel. But we're going to bring that belt in line with our input belt. We can then extend this out a tiny little bit. And we know that the only item that's ever going to end up here is going to be our cactus. And the simplest way to get those items down here is going to be using a chute. So we can now remove this barrel, it's no longer necessary. You'll see that that goes round, goes in. However, you've noticed something's a little bit wrong. That was a cactus and we needed green dye. That is where this millstone is going to come in handy. Now, I am going to use brass because the cactus does seem to be coming in quite quickly. That's going to get pumped out. We're going to have green dye in this vault over here. So let me go ahead and break that vault and place it back down because we don't want any cactus ending up in there. That was just for demonstration purposes. But again, another millstone, another small cogwheel, and vertical gearbox. Green dye! Yay! And no byproducts. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Create. But I can't believe how efficient that small cactus farm actually is. They are growing. So we've got our white dye. We've got our green dye. What happens if we combine them together? We get lime green dye. However, in order to do that, we're going to place down 2 depots. We're going to stick on some andesite funnels so those dyes go onto the depots. And then on those depots, we need to place down 2 temporary blocks. Now, above our 2 item vaults with our delicious items in, we're going to place down 2 mechanical crafters. And we're going to have the output facing to our right. Now, taking our first mechanical arm, we're going to right click on our white dye. We're going to double right click on our first mechanical crafter and place that down on our temporary block. Then we're going to repeat the process for our green dye. 1 right click on here. 2 right clicks on there and place it on the temporary block. And we can kill those blocks. So off the side of our mechanical crafter, we are going to place down a conveyor belt. But of course, we're going to need to power these mechanical crafters and there's no nice way to do it. So we're just going to throw a cogwheel on here, a cogwheel next to it. We can add a gearbox into the end of our belt here with our light grey dye box in. And then just connect everything up with some more cogwheels. And then on this top cogwheel, we can add in a vertical gearbox, a cogwheel underneath, and we can drag that across to our mechanical arms. That's going to then start crafting together. That should give us our lime green dye, which when this belt is moving should get put right here. Then the final step, the final thing that we need to do is get our dough and our light green dye to combine to make our slime. And it's at this point that I realize that I have now been recording for exactly 1 hour. That's how long it takes me to make this video for you guys, so subscribe for the effort of the editing. So we're going to start with the dough because that is going to be the weirdest one that we're going to need to try and get to the front. And I am about to place the jankiest belt that I have ever placed in my entire life. It's so janky that it feels illegal, but we have got a gearbox right underneath our diagonal belt. We're going to throw a shaft in over here, a shaft in on the other side, and we're going to run a belt like that. Yeah, it makes me feel icky, but then above that we can place down a chute. Then eventually we'll place a funnel on here, but for now, we're just going to try and direct this belt to combine with our belt up here. Now this belt, that needs to be extended out so it meets in line with our belt above. On the end, we're going to have a belt that goes sideways, so we're going to bring that across here, and we're going to bring this down so it's just past our belt over here. That was a little bit too long. And to get the correct direction, we're going to need to place down 2 gearboxes and a shaft in our belt over here. And then we're going to work our way over to our little belt here that's got our mechanical crafters. We're going to keep up the jankiness now and we're going to add in a couple of chutes, in fact 3 chutes in total. And on the bottom, we're going to add in another belt. That has brought everything together in one place. And the last thing we need to do is we need to connect those belts together like so. We're going to throw in a basin on the corner, mechanical mixer on the top, andesite funnel in one side of the basin and an andesite funnel in the other. Then we can extend out our moving belt a little bit, so we've got a little bit of an output spot, which we're just going to throw into a nice big 2x2 vault. Done. That is all of the belt work that we need to do for this entire enormous, massive build. Just got a tiny little bit more power to do so. Coming around to the back of our basin, we can add in 2 gearboxes here. That's going to give us our rotation to our belt down here. And then we're going to want to hide the ugly of powering our mechanical mixer, so we're not going to power it from the front. Instead, we're going to hide the ugly right behind like so. However, we can make it look a little bit prettier by making those a little bit see-through. The final belt. Oh my goodness, this has been a long time coming. We're going to add in a shaft, a vertical gearbox, a shaft, and a vertical gearbox. We are moving. I think it's safe to take our brass funnel and we're going to throw it into our dough. The dough will then get exported across to here into our mixer. That mixer is going to mix things together and that should give us our slime balls. Now, just in case you're playing on a very weird mod pack and it's got a different recipe that you could make with slime balls and lime green dye, it seems impossible, but you can take one of your slime balls and you can actually set that as a filter for the recipe. So no matter what goes in here now, it can only ever make slime balls. However, before I go ahead and quickly tidy this up, there's one quality of life change that I think we're going to need to make, and that's going to be for our cactus. You see, in here we've got 19 white dye. If we come around the side, we've got 338 green dye. We are producing a lot more cactus than we are producing crops in order to get our bone meal. That means that our farm is going to completely seize up once we get too many cactus. So over here, where we've got our cactus line coming in, we're going to place an item vault next to our hopper over here. We're going to add in a funnel and a funnel. That's going to give us a little bit of a buffer. However, we're going to make this a nice 2x2 item vault. And then above one of our hoppers is going into our composter. We're going to place down a brass funnel. And we're going to scroll this up to something ridiculous like, I don't know, say 32. This is only ever going to drop 32 items at a time. That means the only way that we're ever going to drop a cactus to be composted is when we've got more than 32 items in this vault. It seems unlikely that we're going to get 32 at a time from our farm, so the only reason that this should have 32 in it is if we are backing up on cactus and green dye. Right, I'm going to stop recording for just a moment just so I can pretty this thing up. Alright, so I was about to cut for the video now and take the thumbnail and start editing. I realised that I could make things a little bit better for you guys, so let me take you through the changes that I've made now to this design, just to make it even more efficient. So we're going to start with the extra seeds that we had. They were coming into this vault, getting dropped into lava. That was actually a waste. I worked out a way that if we have a smart chute on the top set to seeds and a fan above it, we can pull those seeds out and send them around then into our composting system over here. We just needed to add a couple of new hoppers. And then I wanted to see how expandable and scalable this project actually is. So I went ahead and set up an additional 3 layers. So I've just copied this layer that we've got down here. and I have pasted it right on top, connecting everything together. Initially, our original design, we were getting around 140 slime balls per hour, but now that we've got the double farm set up, we are producing 300 slime balls per hour. Now there is one final change that we need to make in order to actually make this more efficient. If we head over to our tunnel over here, where we are splitting our dough between what we're using and what we're cooking into bread and composting, taking your wrench, you need to scroll this all the way down to round robin. What that'll do is if we've got one on here, it will send one to this one here, then the next one is guaranteed to go over to this one. And don't worry, this schematic will be available for you guys to download eventually. I just got to get to that point in the series where I've released this schematic. It might not be long, I'm not sure, but it will be out. But anyway, with these changes made, we are producing 300 slime balls per hour, and it is easily expandable. All you need to do is either make a bigger farm or just keep building up and up and up. More farm layers, more cactus. That overflow system is absolutely fantastic. Extra cactus are getting turned into bone meal, which is wonderful. But that's going to do it for today's episode. If you did enjoy yourself, then hit that subscribe button, as you are not going to miss whatever the heck happens next. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye guys.